Reamping is a really interesting principle which implies recording a signal into your digital audio workstation and then sending it out to the real world and amplifying it once again, hence the name Reamplifier, with a real live amp. And here is the deal, girls and boys. Yes, we got the amplifier over here in all its glory. This is a super heavily ultra modified Wangs BT15 amplifier, and it's a really cool sounding amp. And I'm gonna explain to you how the whole process is gonna work right now. So I should be looking at the camera. So here's the deal, girls and boys. In Logic, we're gonna be doing the following. If you remember correctly, I recorded all of these guitars a few days ago, and from here we are going to be doing the following. This is the guitar that we're going to be recording at this point. All of the guitars using this or following this label over here, the green label, are the ones that are going to be sent out to the real world and being reamplified by my amp. And we're going to be recording them using these tracks, the red ones, okay, girls and boys? And also, every time that you see me clicking over this on this little arrow, I'm gonna shrink down all of those guitars. There is nothing fancy happening. This is just a way for me to keep my information under control, girls and boys. Now, here's the important fact, girls and boys. We need to use a special machine that is called a Reamp box, which in simple terms is transforming my signal, the digital signal, into an electrically how can I put it? It's turning the signal coming from my interface into something that my amplifier can understand and interact with as if it were a guitar, a real guitar, okay? So that's the whole point of that little box. From there, we're going into the amplifier, girls and boys. Let me go to the amplifier camera. We're going into the amplifier here, and then we're going into a Reamp box, girls and boys. And if you don't know what that into a dummy load. If you don't know what the dummy load is, I have a video somewhere around the screen after this live stream is over. But also, if you haven't seen it, there is a video inside of this channel on which I explain to you how to record guitars or without the need of microphones. And we are doing exactly the same principle. So let's get into making some noise, girls and boys. So first, this is how it's gonna work. Over here we got my channel strip, which has the input, which was the input number 2, the one that I used to record my guitar into Logic. Then it's gonna be sent out following the output number 3. From there, I'm gonna go into my setup, and output number 3 is basically speaking my interface between my digital audio workstation and my amplifier, okay? So every single time that you see me changing the output to output number 3 means that I'm gonna send the information out to the real world into my guitar amplifier. So that's it. Then I'm gonna re-record that signal into this channel, girls and boys, okay? Channel number using the instrument track or input number 2 in my interface. And then we're gonna do something quite important, girls and boys. We're gonna use this plugin. This plugin here is an IR loader, which stands for impulse response, which is gonna allow us to change the sound of our virtual cabinet, girls and boys. We're not using cabinets right now. We're just using the amplifier to get the grid, the powerful sound of the real tube amplifier, and then we are gonna select a proper microphone in front of a proper cabinet, okay, girls and boys? So without further ado, let's make some noise. I already have something loaded up, and from there we're gonna get started. So here we go, girls and boys. I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna go through the second camera, and then I'm gonna turn on the amp, and I'm gonna go back to Logic and make sure that we got input monitoring on. That way we will be able to hear whenever we have signal or not. Okay, girls and boys, so let's rock. I told you, girls and boys, this amp sounds amazing, and I haven't done anything. Right now, I just I just said it as it is, and that was it, and we're already getting a really amazing sound. But let me explain how this amplifier works. So first things first, this amplifier is following a really old and extremely simple, how can I put it, simple circuit on which we have two inputs. It's only one channel of some sort or something. I should be looking at the camera, but it has two different inputs. Each of those inputs have a completely different flavor. Right now we were using the high input, which is the one over here on top, but if I change the cable and I put it into low input, we're gonna get a completely different sound. Let me play back the track to you, girls and boys, and you will find and you will see how different it is. Isn't it interesting, girls and boys? We got some form of quasi-clean sound because, as you might already guessed, high stands for high gain and low stands for low gain. So we're gonna get a kind of cleanish sound out of it when we are using the low gain input. So all is fine and cool, right? So now, for this particular track, I am looking for something that sounds a little bit more grittier. So I think that we're gonna use input number high. Here we go, bam. And sorry, girls and boys, if there is some background noise, but that's what happens when you're using a super pumped up guitar amplifier. So let's press play and let's try to get a proper sounding guitar tone. And also I'm gonna explain to you my philosophies behind designing a guitar tone for recording purposes. Okay, so first I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna back down the gain. I'm gonna set everything to the center, and then I'm gonna press play. First, let me explain to you what every single one of these knobs does. Okay, girls and boys. First one is gonna be this master. The master is actually the master output, but also, girls and boys, this is important. This is, since we're dealing with the proper tube amplifier, this means, a master means that we are going to be able to generate a power amp distortion, which is great. And actually that's where the power actually lies, in your guitar amplifier. Then we got presence, which is controlling super high, sorry girls and boys, super high, the highs of the sound of your guitar, like super high and energy or information. Then we got bass, which for obvious reasons is a bass filter. Then the mids, which, believe it or not, that's where the magic happens, girls and boys. The people who tells you that you have to scoop the mids, they are giving you really bad fake news. Then treble stands for treble, and the gain. The gain is the input. Okay, girls and boys, people usually associate the gain of your amplifier as a way to generate overdrive, but in reality, what it is doing is actually changing the way that your amplifier is reacting to the input of your guitar. Okay, so the higher the gain is, the easier for your amplifier will be it's gonna be to actually get to the breakup point of the preamp section, girls and boys. Okay, so without further ado, I'm gonna press play because I've been talking for quite a long time and I want you to get familiar with the sound of the amp and what every single one of these knobs does. Okay, so here we go. Okay, girls and boys, I don't know if you saw it, but as soon as I started to crank up the gain knob, the amplifier started to react in a completely different way. Remember what I told you before? Depending on the amount of gain that you set on your preamp, which is the input,